Good morning. My name is Alonzo Holmes. I am the author of Noah's Family, a book that was published back in July of 2012. I'd like to just show you the front cover. Check us out. It is available at Amazon and online. And just leave us a comment. What we're doing this morning is just the beginning of a verbal commentary series that we intend to do on the book. We tend to go through each chapter and make some comments and share a little bit with the audience and listeners as to the reason that we wrote the book. What was the inspiration behind it? I like to say that uh, at the time, I wasn't fully aware of it, but we've been very fascinated in time past and have done different studies and just information researching on the Mesopotamia civilization. And as you know it, Mesopotamia is the Greek word meaning the land between two rivers. And we recently initiated something, and this is a continuation of that, whereby we have discussed something or introduced something that we call the Mesopotamia method. And this is a way of making history simple. Uh, and I didn't realize it at the time, but when we were receiving the inspiration and musing over the book, we discovered that we had in fact written a book based on that premise, the Mesopotamia method. And in short, uh, what we call the Mesopotamia method means just as Mesopotamia means the land between two rivers. And the two rivers that I'm referring to are located in what we call today the Middle East, which is mostly modern day Iraq. And the land between two rivers are Mesopotamia. The two rivers that we're speaking of are the Tigris and the Euphrates, and it's there that many scholars, many archaeologists have identified that as the cradle of civilization. There were other and many river valley cradles, if you will, but they believe, and I'm inclined to believe, that Mesopotamia was the first, and that is the land between the Tigris River and the Euphrates River. And as you know, the land between those two rivers, which is understandably so, that particular land and the climate, it was arid as I understand it. The land was very fertile. And one archaeologist later on named it the Fertile Crescent. And so I didn't realize it, but the Mesopotamia method, I realize now looking back that we employed it in the writing. And for us, the Mesopotamia method is simply looking at history, studying history, writing history from the perspective of a sacred standpoint and a secular standpoint. In other words, sacred history, which for me as the author of Noah's Family, I based my most of my sacred history was based on the Holy Bible, the King James Version. And there are other sacred texts that we may refer to during the commentary. And secular history. Well, secular history, we have many secular sources. And for me, most of my sources were cited from the Encyclopedia Encarta at the time of writing and prior to publication. I'd like to begin in chapter 1. Once again, I want to say that the Mesopotamian method can be identified throughout the book, and I'm going to refer back to it. And I believe that between sacred history and secular history, one can have a more fertile, if you will, more fertile understanding of human history. There's a lot that can be learned from history. There's a lot that can be gained by studying history. We know that history is very important. And so without further delay, let's take a look at chapter 1. If you have a copy of this book, we'll begin on chapter 1 uh, on page 13. Uh, it opens up with the beginning, Lamech's boy, and I use terminology or expressions that I grew up hearing my father and older ones in my community, in my family household, and they would often we were never called by our first name, but called boy. But anyway, the beginning, Lamech's boy, and I'll just read the first sentence, and then we'll go from there. Thousands of years ago, there was a man whose name was Lamech. He was the son of the oldest living human being recorded in biblical history. Yes, Methuselah lived to be 969 years old. Wow. Then he died. Methuselah was the son of the renowned Hall of Faith inductee Enoch. And so we'll we'll use that as our opening statement. Again, we didn't try to narrow uh, we didn't try to narrow down an exact date or time span. We know that the antediluvian period, which is the period before the deluge, and we're well aware that many people do not believe that the deluge took place. However, I believe that it took place. Um, and so, as the author, we're just going to offer verbal commentary on the book. And it's interesting that we identified thousands of years ago, that could be 10,000, 20,000 years ago, if you will. There was a man whose name was Lamech. And again, he was the son of his father was Methuselah, who lived to be, according to the Bible, sacred history source. According to the Bible, he lived to be 969 years old, just short of 1,000, just short of living one millennia. And of course, Methuselah and Lamech all descend from, according to the Bible, descend from Adam. Uh, and so Methuselah was the son of the renowned Hall of Faith inductee Enoch.